Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence start. 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we have a problem.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake. 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 Because it looks so fake.
Shit, I've been busy all day long. People don't
All right.
believe me that I work 7 days a week.
So I don't know which way who's over here, but we got Jaron Campanella with
Recording in progress.
all of the TV screens and
Recording stopped.
Oh,
then we got Bob
Recording
Nodell.
in progress.
Hey Ken,
from
how
the-
you doing?
hey.
So I don't know if you've ever heard us or anything. Probably not.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
We're
So famous. I mean, come on.
yeah. Bob follows your work religiously. I might say Jaron probably a little less, and me I follow it the most I can because it's a little farther over my head than some people. But we respect what you're doing. It ties into what we're talking about, and tonight we want to introduce some ideas to you that maybe you'd never thought of before. I listened to your live stream last night, and you were poking at Flat Earth a little bit, but the stuff you were poking at,
No, not really. Actually, everybody was poking at me.
yeah, of course, you got to watch out. Those
Well,
Flat
that was
Earthers can be
happening too.
assholes. Yeah, the reason we were all where
I was
you
laughing
are.
99% of the time, though. I wasn't being mean to anybody.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying we used to laugh at flat Earth because we thought Earth was a disk floating in space, moving up at 9.8 meters per second. We thought, the picture when you Google flat Earth, that's what the flat Earth was. We're not a disk in space. So we're gonna kind of just go over some of that stuff. And we want to talk to you about our view on how gravity works, or the thing that we call gravity, and see where the conversation goes. The other thing is, we're not streaming this live. We're just going to record it. And then when we're done, I want to make sure that you're happy with the conversation and you say, air it, cut this part out, or don't air
No,
it.
you can edit it any way you like. That's all fine with me.
We just respect you, and we don't want you to feel any pressure. And we figured this is going to be a better conversation just between the four of us to start. And then we'll air it however we all agree upon.
Oh, I'm not really looking for respect. I guess I'm unlike everybody else.
Well,
Death,
you're still going to get it. So,
Yeah.
as we do, we respect people. We respect you. And Ken, honestly, I've probably been largely responsible for your introduction to the Flat Earthers because I followed you for up 6 or 7 years now, ever since I first came on. And I love your work. I really do. It's amazing. It's a complete different paradigm than what I was taught as an engineer. I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I worked in RF, microwave, satellite, two-way radio, cellular, that kind of stuff. And your approach, your take on electricity is something that is so unique, and it just resonates. It makes so much sense to me, and I really appreciate it.
I just got that from the same place Dollar did, Electrical Discharges, Waves, and Impulses by Charles Proteus Steinmetz, page 14, published 1914. And of course, it makes everything completely sensible. You never understand an electromagnet by the way these common idiots explain it, but if you actually understand electricity, the compound of dielectricity and magnetism, explaining an electromagnet becomes really easy. And he said that they were completely messed it up. Was 1914 is what, 112 years ago? He said it was completely messed up by then. So it's only gotten worse.
Einstein was largely responsible for that, I think. They had a different agenda, coming into this, I think, and they wanted to roll out a different paradigm, which, I feel is completely inaccurate, and I'm sure you do too. And that's really derailed science in a lot of ways. And it's depressing. It's really
the cult of quantum.
Yes, yeah, I know, quantum mechanics. And I used to really think that was the coolest thing ever, but then I started looking at it and it's like, how do they know this stuff? This doesn't make any sense. And then when you were talking about how Light is neither a particle or a wave. It's an induction, through the ether. And that cleared up everything, how it could slow down and speed up and all that.
Well, not through the ether, implying it's something separate or different than the ether, just an ether perturbation modality, a coaxial
Right.
circuit. It's not a wave, not particle, wave-particle duality. There can't be any dualities in nature. That's inherently contradictory to natura naturans or Mother Nature itself, whether you believe in God or what. It doesn't matter what anybody believes in. It's inherently contradictory. So it's not an emission. The speed is simply explained. I mean, rate of induction to the hysteresis of the ether. Basically, a sound.
And speaking of that, just out of curiosity, when we speak of a rate of induction, what are the factors that control that rate of induction?
The hysteresis of the ether. Would be C, be the limit, would be the impermeable. Of course, we have a sound barrier, but of course we can go Mach 2, Mach 3, way beyond the sound barrier. Tesla said that light can be nothing other than a sound wave in the ether. And of course, that's hyperlogical on many fronts. I mean, of course, sound is not an emission, but we have the speed of sound. Every human being on Earth suffers the delusion that anything that has a speed is something that's moving from point A to point B, but light is not an emission, nor is it moving. It's the rate of induction. Explaining rainbows becomes incredibly simple. We're talking about the dielectric capacitance of blue in spectrum light versus red in spectrum light, which the difference is like 2.4 EV volts. It'd be like a wet road, a corner on a wet road, two identical trucks. One's empty, one is loaded down, whereas the heavy truck, would skid and maybe go over the corner. And actually, the refractive index of the capacitance of the medium that it's actually passing through is different. So explaining light diffraction, explaining, that's what Einstein got his Nobel Prize for, is not relativity, but the photoelectric effect, excuse me.
All right.
All the phenomena of explaining light becomes just so abundantly simplex, and it necessitatively must be that way. One thing Einstein did get right, he said if you can't explain it to a barmaid, then you don't understand it. You can never explain general relativity or quantum mechanics to a barmaid. It's just completely ludicrous. And by their own admission, by their own words, not me, they say, well, magnets are emitting virtual photons. There's no evidence for that whatsoever. Absolutely none. On the input or output of any experiment ever done, there's no basis for it whatsoever.
It's kind of like Feynman trying to.
Anyway, but sound is not a. Yeah, Feynman. Oh, yeah, that goofball. He was.
What a laugh.
That knuckle dragging mental midget fool, that intellectual imbecile. Excuse me, I shouldn't talk like that. But
it's okay.
Getting back to Tesla, Tesla said that light was something on the sound wave in the ether, but sound is not an emission. But everybody thinks that anything has a speed, of course, is moving. I mean, everybody suffers from that. I suffered from that much of my life too, but nothing is moving. It's a disturbance of the medium itself. Nobody emits sound. We're setting up a disturbance in the medium, in that case, nitrogen and oxygen, i.e. the air. We're not emitting sound, but of course, speed of sound, sound's moving. I forget what the speed of sound is, supposedly, but that's just the rate of induction.
miles an hour, something like that.
And it actually changes depending on how cold the air is,
exactly,
relative to its density, and the same is true of light. Well, the C is a constant. 99.9% of people believe that too, and that's not the case. I mean, light changes through glass and water and countless other different mediums. So,
yeah. And that's why, what you say about propagation through the ether, it makes so much more sense in how it works. And again, through the ether. And forgive me if I misuse a lot of the terms, but one thing you do, Ken, is you will use words in several different contexts, and sometimes it gets a little confusing. And fortunately, I have a few resources online that kind of are like Ken Wheeler interpreters. Because I really do. I listen very, very.
I'm really not trying to make
what you say.
I'm not trying to use big words. I think like that actually. So
I understand that, but you have to understand that we were all trained in a very different way. I mean, you went to the same school system we did, and I don't know where you got in college or anything like that, but we fully agreed that the education system in in the entire world is nothing more than an indoctrination system. It's their way or the highway, and unfortunately, so much of it is wrong, and that's a problem.
No one's
it really
taught
is.
how to. No one's taught how to think. It's epistemic regurgitation. You go home and memorize garbage, and come back and take a multiple guess test.
And those that do it best become the teachers of the next generation.
Those who can't teach, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Ken, we were all in 2014, 2015, right where you are. Earth is a spinning ball flying in space. I believe you come from that camp. And when we were introduced to the idea that the Earth might be a level horizontal stationary plane, we laughed at those people, banned them from our social media, ridiculed them, made fun of them, and refused to look. We refused to even watch a short video. But then finally, we all got sick of it at some point. We said, that's it. We're going to just put this to bed. And that's how we became where we are right now. We are anti-globers, or also known as
Globe skeptics.
Globe skeptics, right?
And that's anti-spheroid.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't sound as good.
But the thing is, we're all programmed with what flat Earth is, and flat Earth isn't a disc floating in space. This is mixing the two models. This is ridiculous, right? But you ask anybody that's a glober, they're like, "Oh, what are we, the only flat planet? Are the other planets flat?" We don't believe any of that. And when we actually apply science to what we see in the sky, we realize that we can't be seeing what they're telling us. For example, just the other night, Mars, not that, well, it was a little while ago, Mars and Jupiter were in the sky. I could see them with my naked eyes. I have to believe that dusty, dirty ball, Jupiter and Mars, is reflecting sunlight that ignores the universe square law of light, comes back here and is brighter than any star. That makes absolutely no sense when we look at it. When we look at the universe square law of the moonlight, if the moonlight here on a bright full moon night was only 1 lumen, by the time I got 100 miles from the moon, it's like 60 times brighter than we see the sun, right? And that doesn't sound like a dusty, dirty ball reflecting.
Let's ask Ken, though. I want to know, Ken, do you think we went to the moon?
Yeah, I would never want to make a video on Apollo. There's a lot of images that are completely impossible. Actually, an enormous amount of images. They're all on Flickr now in high resolution. Having examined photographs for so many decades, most people can't see it, and you download the high resolution. I think some of the images I've proven have been redoctored so that you can't see it. But if you find, there's countless thousands of resources to find the high resolution Apollo pictures. You take them and you just invert the image, and you can actually see things that are completely impossible.
Yeah, they've got boxes over the Earth as if they've input it into the scene.
Well, the big one is actually be like 4 EV stops gradient difference between something that's only 4 feet and 6 feet away from the standpoint of the astronaut, which is impossible. But how they actually do that is they stitch it. The reason why is the sets that they used. They couldn't literally stick in, 1.5 miles of powdered basaltic rock. They would actually stitch the images. And we're talking about 1960s stitching, of course.
Right.
And they would actually use little pins, but you can't see it on the bright image. It both looks bright, but you invert it as blatant.
So I think for me, that was a big one, is just really look into the moon landing as much as I could, because I said if they can keep that a secret, then who knows what they can keep a secret, right? And I don't know if you've looked into Edwin Hubble, but Edwin Hubble being responsible for the expanding universe, when you go back and see what he had to say about it, he said that observationally he could not disprove the central Earth theory. I've heard it from George Ellis. I've heard it from many cosmologists. They say that they choose their models based on philosophical grounds. And Edwin Hubble said, we have to stay away from the absolute horror of a unique position. It's absolutely intolerable. So that's when I realized that I think science is more about a worldview than it is truly about science. They have a worldview, they have a direction they're going, and so all they're biased, of course, and I know that humans run it, so of course I can't think for a second that they're not biased. But science has this idea that they tell people that they're unbiased, right? That they go in and they have open minds to everything, but they don't, because it all has to fit their preconceived notion of this expanding universe, of everything's expanding and it's getting bigger, and they can rewind the sky clock and get to the Big Bang. But yeah, we a lot of that
they're completely biased. They would never become PhDs or doctors of anything. They're like 3 dogs that are sniffing each other's butts. They're not unbiased.
Yeah, they try and pretend like they are. It's hilarious.
Every branch of science, too, throughout all of history, has always thought that their crap was 100% right, and they've always been proven wrong, depending on the time period, Dark Ages, so on and so forth.
Right,
they've always been proven wrong. Always.
Neil deGrasse Tyson goes around telling people that science is true whether or not you believe in it. And there's not a more patently absurd false statement that one person could say.
Oh, he's an egomaniac mental midget. He's a fool.
Yeah. Well, we're on the same page there.
So far, yeah. Good.
Wait, let's not leave out Michio Kaku, the late, what's
Brian
his face
Cox.
that was in the wheel?
Michio Kaku said that, when we're off a factor of 2 or 10, it's horrible. But cosmology is off to a factor of 10 to the 120th power. I mean, that's a number that I don't believe even exists.
Stephen Hawking, let's not forget about him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, another puppet, and that's no pun intended, because
Yeah.
I don't believe he's been alive for the last 30 years.
You don't think he had ALS for 50 years?
I don't think, no, he didn't have ALS for 50 years. That was just a puppet that they're,
And Michio Kaku also did a great job when he said that, because it's so funny, because he says that nobody in his field that he knows of uses the so-called scientific method, which is him admitting that theoretical physics is pseudoscience. That's because that's the definition of pseudoscience, is anything purporting to be science that doesn't go by the scientific method.
Ken,
He says it's wild guesses and
Fly by the seat of our
just
pants.
crazy theories. Yeah, by the seat of their pants. It's like, wow, that's real scientific.
Now we got a string theory, and people
so
think,
It's easy to destroy these people. They
Yeah.
can't define the term field. They can't define the term energy. They think the flow
Right.
of power is electrons, which of course is completely impossible using wireless power induction. Their brains mentally become incontinent when you ask them simple questions like a child would ask.
So Ken, have you seen SpaceX and Blue Origin and I don't know, I think NASA also are landing their first stages upright. Have you watched any of those?
Oh no, I couldn't care less about any of that.
Right.
I'll never watch any of that stuff.
Well, the reason I ask for it is because if you did watch it, you would see that it's absolute insanity, complete and total fake CGI. So if they're faking rockets, has anyone ever been into space? Is anybody on the International Space Station? This what I'm showing right here, this is Elon testing his Mars rocket. But if I go forward, this thing is free falling out of the sky. This is 40,000 pounds empty. This is free falling. Now look at the smoke that's coming off of here. Does this look it's free falling?
that's in
Okay.
real speed.
This is in real speed. This is unedited from them. Now they just cut to the onboard camera, and now look how high they are. Then they're going to cut. Now we have a side shot, so it can't be that high. This is free falling. Now watch this. These engines are going to turn on. It's going to turn upright. Two of the engines are going to go out, and it's going to land upright. And watch this hero shot here. This is a movie you're watching, right? The engines go on. Somehow the cameraman gets underneath. Two of the three engines are going to go out, and this little flame with all of this smoke, it's going to land upright with a whole bunch of CGI smoke. And people believe this is real. Look, CGI smoke, there it is. And this thing lands upright.
I don't know if that
40,000 pounds.
I don't know if that was drone footage. It's supposed to be presumably what gyroscopic stabilization for the return.
But Ken, when you watch these things,
I doubt though. I don't watch.
yeah, I know that you don't. But what I'm saying is, if that's one of the problems. People are like, oh my God, Elon Musk put his car in space. I'm like, did you look at it? No, I heard about it on
And
the
did
news.
you watch that? Did you watch
space?
Car in
Well, space doesn't exist. I've said that since the beginning. And
Th-
the only
we're-
time that Nikola Tesla foams at the mouth and pees his diaper, not literally, of course, is against the notion that space is something that can be bent or that it is something that it has properties. He rails on that endlessly.
Yeah.
Space is no different than a shadow. A shadow is not a thing. It's not a principle. So you have to see
Vibration.
something else. So, yeah, space does not exist.
So again, we're on common ground. Again, because we don't believe that space exists, especially the way that they describe it. Personally, we think that it's water, that space is water, and we live inside of this toroidal bubble on this dielectric plane in this toroidal field. So I'm going to let Bob talk a little bit about our what we think is causing the downward force and what gravity is. And while he's talking, I could show a couple things.
Let me ask something real quick, and then Bob.
Yeah.
So do you accept their distance to the sun, their sizes and distances to planets, or do you think that could all be fabrication?
That's presumably true, but I'm always open to.
Okay, that's good. You're the one who taught me that. You said smart people who think they're smart never go looking for answers to questions they think they already know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You never go looking for the answers to things you think you already know the answer to.
Right.
Okay. Well, let me start out by saying, Ken, that first of all, I am not a religious person. I don't think any of us are. Yes, there are a lot of religious fanatics in flat Earth because, the Bible is kind of a flat Earth book, from cover to cover, because it doesn't describe a sphere or anything like that. But all that aside, every other cosmology that has been talked about by different civilizations shows the Earth to be this kind of flat with a dome over the top of it, right? And this goes way, way back in history, and all of these different cosmologies and civilizations have, kind of defined it that way. And so, and even our Bible, it talks about how it was created and how God created the firmament over the top, like, kind of like molten glass that he puts over the top. So I looked at that and I said, okay, so what if that's real? What kind of evidence is there for that? And what I found was amazing. There's a lot of optical phenomenon that will kind of demonstrate that. The fact that, we are able to sit inside of a 14.7 or 760 torr atmosphere next to a 10 to the negative 17th vacuum without blowing the atmosphere off into space. And, they say, well, gravity takes care of that. It's like gravity's way too weak to take care of that. It stands to reason, at least in our minds, that we are in something that is in fact covered. Okay, so, and if that's true, there should be several things that are indicators of that. So the fact that we're pressurized, that's one thing. There's a lot of interesting things that go on up in, space that I find kind of interesting. For example, when a lot of the observatories are looking at the stars, they have this little tool that they can create an artificial star. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah.
To calibrate? Okay.
Yep.
So what they say they're doing is they're firing a laser up to about 62 miles or 100 kilometers, and it's hitting something they call a sodium layer. And with that, it fluoresces the sodium layer, and then they are able to then take that low magnitude or high brightness light and feed it back to the mirrors and actually modulate the mirrors on the telescope so that it removes a lot of the atmospheric distortion.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So my
I've
question
those, I've seen those little capillary actions on the back of the reflector telescopes and where they attach that.
yeah,
actually-
it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So, that's kind of interesting that they do that. And it just happens to happen right at 62 miles or 100 kilometers. So that's kind of our magic number. What we're looking at here, at least in my mind, is the lower extremity of the firmament. Okay, so what else do we have that tells us that? And we also have, well, if you've ever watched a NASA launch or anybody launch, when they launch off, they are going horizontal, usually within 30 seconds. And their typical explanation for that is, well, you have to get up to escape velocity, which is Mach 88, to be able to get outside of the Earth's atmosphere. But that, from what we can tell, we've never seen that happen, even when it's filmed from long distances away. They never go straight up, and they never appear to go all the way out into space.
They go out to the Bermuda Triangle and they crash into the ocean.
Yeah, and we actually have footage of them recovering that.
Right.
Okay,
And
so another thing.
go ahead, Bob.
I was just saying, another bit of evidence. Are you familiar with the phenomenon of sprites and elves?
Yeah, I did a couple of videos on it.
Okay, cool. So then you understand that, it's very interesting that in order for there to be a discharge of an electrostatic discharge, obviously there has to be a pretty enormous difference of charge potential, yes?
Yep.
Okay, so when
I used
we
to live
look
in Lightning Alley.
Oh, did you really? I bet that was interesting. In Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when we look at this, they have really gotten some great footage on it recently. And every time that one of these upward discharges takes place, not only do they go out, but they flatten out. They hit something like they're flattening out at the top, right? And guess where that happens? 100 kilometers, 62 miles. Why would that happen? Well,
Let me
honestly,
go ahead, finish, and I'll interject. Go
okay.
ahead.
Well, again, my idea is that this is part of our enclosed system, and I will get into that with how basically the upper level is a Gaussian type of plate, and the Earth is kind of like a gigantic capacitor, and there's evidence for that as well. But go ahead, and David, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say there was, NASA always gives us these edited videos, but in Arizona, they shot up the Go Fast rocket amateur rocket a bunch of years ago, and it went straight up with an unedited view. We're looking down. And there's a side camera too, but at right around 62 miles, it went kerplunk. It went into something thicker, not what maybe water, some sort of plasmic field or something. And that was interesting. And then it floated a little weird. I have this a little sped up. But when it turned on its side, something very interesting happened. We saw the night sky, and all of a sudden we saw the moon right there. Right. Well, the moon at the time of this was over Australia. So the moon's over here, we're over here, and we can see the moon, right? If the Earth was a basketball and that rocket was a quarter of a millimeter over the top of that basketball, the moon was underneath the basketball, and somehow we saw the moon. Okay, interesting. And again, 62 miles is where it hit. Bam.
July 14th, 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I can go on and on and on. We have a ton of government documents, and I mean a lot of them, and I can send them too if you want to see them, from the Army, from NASA, from the CIA, from the Air Force, and they are all studies talking about the firmament and the characteristics of the firmament. And it's like, and they
I've
also
seen a couple of those.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like
from
what?
CIA.gov.
Mm-hmm. Well, from all different branches, and also, they talk about whenever they talk about in models for like aerodynamics of airplanes or the physics of how flight works, they always specify that everything is done under the assumption of a non-rotating and flat Earth. And they say this over and over and over and over again. It's like, well, what good are doing these types of tests in an environment that is completely foreign to that concept, right? It doesn't make sense. So, all right, so we have those, and there's just a ton of evidence. Ken, I'm not going to go through all of it with you, but ultimately, what we have come up with, or what I came up with primarily, and this is largely from your work, is that what's happening is that the Earth itself is an enclosed system. The firmament, the lower level of the firmament, is a large Gaussian type of surface. Okay. Now, which basically is just a gigantic capacitor. The Earth acting as the negative ground and the firmament acting as positive. Okay. Now, how do we know that? Well, one of the things that mainstream science fully acknowledges is that there is an equipotential lines of force that go up at the rate of 100 volts per meter, and it can be measured. And of course, I knew that a long time ago. It never occurred to me. I'm also a ham radio operator, by the way. And, I've been up on a tower several times. You come across ground when you're up a couple hundred feet on a tower, and it'll knock your dick in the dirt, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and worked on top of buildings. But yes, that voltage is absolutely, positively, measurably there. It's acknowledged by the mainstream. Richard Feynman even writes in his books that they have measured it all the way up to 50 kilometers, which would give it a potential at 100 volts per meter of 5 million volts. And if it goes all the way to where I think it goes, to the firmament at 100 kilometers, well, that's 10 million volts as a baseline. All right. So, and this is where we get into the gravity. And actually, I have a video here that I'd love to play just a couple minutes of, David, when you get a second.
Which video? Which video?
It's Zach's video.
With the balloons.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, I got it right here. So we got these balloons hooked up to this wire that's hooked up to a Van de Graaff generator. We just got like a metal button on here. And so we have it at equilibrium. And now we're going to charge it up, giving it a positive charge. And as we add the positive charge, it goes down.
Right.
And as soon as we take, go ahead.
I was going to say, what we need to do is I need to lay the groundwork of this really quick.
Yeah.
Just so we could see. And Ken, I think you may have seen this because Zach said that he thought you actually commented on it.
Yeah, electrostatic charge. I mean, so-called gravity does not exist. I've said that a million times in a million different videos.
I agree.
What you're showing in those balloons where it's actually falling towards the Earth because of where you charge is no different than pulling your hand out of a box of styrofoam beads and you're trying to shake the beads off of your hand. It's still stuck to your hand. So, whoops. Hello?
Yep.
Oops,
What happened? Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, I just kicked over to screen share. You guys got my screen share?
Go ahead. Yep, we're good.
Okay, so let me play this for a couple minutes, and basically, this is going to outline this a little bit. And Zach Zabala actually made this. He's one of our associates, and after collaborating with me, and so let me just play this, and we'll get you a little bit better involved here. Oops.
Look at Earth's electrostatic field. This is important because we, along with all the matter in this known realm, are inside of an electrostatic field. The Earth itself has a measurable negative charge compared to the air above it all across the plane. As soon as you leave the surface, there is a positive charge in the air around you that grows in electrostatic potential the further you go up towards the sky. It is a steady, gradual rise in potential, which tells us, according to the laws of electricity, that we are between two Gaussian surfaces. A Gaussian surface is simply a surface that encloses or distributes a charge. If there were only one surface, the rate at which the positive potential grew would be different. Knowing that we are between two Gaussian surfaces, we can also know that certain phenomenon will take place in all matter within the electric field, or area between the two surfaces. For this topic, we will first look at polarization through electrostatic induction.
Now, first of all, Ken, I have to tell you that we don't necessarily believe in the model of the atom at all, but since most people can relate to this as far as how you come up with charged particles, that's why we use this as an example. So I know you don't agree with that part.
That's okay.
But, okay, so, but it gives you the idea. So
For sake of analogies, that's fine.
Exactly.
Electrostatic induction is a phenomenon where the positive and negative static charges on matter are slightly separated or polarized due to the electrostatic charge of its surrounding area. If one set of the object's surroundings is positive and the other negative, the negative charge on the object will be attracted to the positive area around it, while the positive charge on the object will be attracted to the negative area on the opposite side. So here on Earth, the positive charge on our bodies is always attracted down towards the Earth, and the negative will be attracted to the air above. This phenomena creates a slight force in that downward vector, because as soon as we leave the ground, we start becoming positively charged by the air around us and are now forced towards the negative of the ground. This is electrostatic acceleration. One might think that the attraction from above and below would cancel out completely, but it is the electrostatic gradient that creates a flow from the positive above to the negative below. Think of the Earth as a flat strainer, and there is a constant flow of water from above, moving very slowly, always applying a force in a downward direction. This would be considered a vector. The electrostatic potential difference getting stronger as you rise from the Earth will keep a steady pressure from above at all times until it reaches the Gaussian surface above. When we reverse the polarity of the electric field and put a negative surface above a positive one, we can reverse this electrostatic phenomenon and get things to stick to the upper plate as if it were the ground. This works with all types of matter. You can move wood, iron filings, and even human hair with these forces. Believe it or not, you can even get water to bend.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that there. And you can still hear me, yeah?
Yep.
Me? Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So, so basically, Ken, what we're saying is that it is, since we believe that we're in this container and basically we live on the dielectric inertial plane of the Earth. That's the circular part, the pizza part, right, if you will. And we have these Gaussian plates above us and below us, the Earth itself acting as a Gaussian plate. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the deepest hole that's ever been dug, the coal mines or something like that, is something like 8 miles down, and they cannot go any further down than that. They run into a very interesting substance down there that is virtually impenetrable. So that's what we're
that's in Russia, the deepest hole. I forget the name of the hole though. But
The Bora super hole or something like that.
the only thing they
Yeah.
needed to change in that video is to talk of a negative charge. There's no such thing as a negative charge. Walter Russell said the same thing. We're talking about a ground or a discharge point. So, but that's just splitting hairs, though, of course. But
Here's the hole, if anybody cares.
oh, that's a big one. I was thinking that you're talking about like the deepest borehole, that one in Russia, which I
That was the one in Russia.
yeah, the one in Russia is the deepest one. It's covered over. It's actually a small little hole, even at the top.
Oh, I thought
okay.
this was all right, whatever.
I think
So
that was-
anyway,
They made a movie about it too, because when they stuck a microphone all the way down to the bottom of it, they heard these weird voices and it sounded
Like
like
hell.
they were in hell. Yeah.
I'm still freaked out about hearing that.
right. So, okay. So anyway, so basically that's it in a nutshell. There's a lot more detail to it, of course. And, if you have questions, I can try and answer them. But, honestly, I'd love to be able to ask you questions about it. But, going into these assumptions and the cosmologies that have been brought forward from ancient past, and none of us for 1 minute can believe that the ancients were dummies. We don't believe that. In fact, I would say that today's society is far dumber than they were centuries, if not thousands of years ago.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is what we call the so-called incoherent electrostatic downward vector, okay, which is our model of gravity, right? Because while it is true that it is theoretically possible that mass could attract mass, and I think you even accept that, the problem that we have with it is we also ran another test where we were doing tests with the little BBs that were magnetic BBs. And we took like 10 of them in a row and we put it next to a Tesla meter, a Gauss meter, and showed that when you line those up, north, south, north, south, north, south, the magnetic field, the field strength becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, okay? But if you take those same BBs and just clump them up in a clump, then all of a sudden they all stick together and everything, but the magnetic field strength goes down to almost nothing. But
Right.
the interesting thing about that is when you do that, then you can take like a magnet from the outside, a bar magnet or whatever, and it doesn't matter whether you put a north or a south pole to it, it will still stick. So it's an attractive only type of force, right? And I just thought, well, okay, that would be kind of analogous to how they describe gravity. But like I said, I don't buy into that. So, so we came up with this, and this was based largely on your work. And, what do you think?
On what you just said, or the video, or I don't know what you're making reference
Well,
to.
just kind of the whole idea behind the electrostatic model of gravity, because we don't believe it is what they say it is. We really don't.
In mutual mass accept, there's no difference between so-called magnetic attraction, which is not magnetism at all, because magnetism is a fundamental force vector.
Right.
So that's been observed. Well, these are two magnets, two lodestones are accelerating towards one another. That's magnetic attraction. I mean, every branch of science, we've been saying that now for thousands of years. That's completely not true. That's not magnetic attraction. That's dielectric acceleration. The only distinction between it and so-called gravity is one's point source and the other one's non-point source, which is the easiest analogy I've come up with is a light bulb versus a laser. Why one
Exactly.
light bulb is
Coherency.
completely useless. Right, correct. Well, it's
Right.
point source. Actually, what defines a laser is not coherency, but rather a point source. I was going to make a video sometime this week or next week on that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, the magnetic example was basically, when you have lined up north, south, north, south, north, south, that was going to be a coherent type of magnetic force. And
You can also, too, take those BB magnets and put them in a circle, and the magnetic flux will actually greatly diminish so that it's almost
That's true.
imperceptible outside of it.
we did that. We actually have several videos made on that. So I'd love to show you all this stuff. But yeah, so And I know we don't have a lot of time today. So this is what, we look at as far as gravity and, how it works. And again, it's all based on what you have talked about with the ether and, rates of induction and the different modalities of the ether. And beyond that, oh, go ahead.
Ken, I want to bring it back 10 paces just for about a minute. So, we're all taught that we live on a spinning ball, and they tell us a whole bunch of pre-programmed things to make us believe. On the bottom, if you're going from any northern destination to any other northern destination, would you ever need to cross the equator? What do you think? From any northern destination to any other northern destination, you wouldn't need to. And guess what? You're right. No flights that start in the north and end anywhere else in the north ever cross the equator. The problem is that should be the same for the South. But in the South, we have something very strange that happens, right? When you, I'm trying to pull up a picture here. So this flight goes all the way up here and then all the way back down. It crosses the equator twice, but when you lay it on a flat map, it's a straight line, right? Southern flights, long distance southern flights, cross the equator multiple times. Here's another one. On the ball, it goes all the way up here and then all the way down. Now, they'll say, oh, they got to pick up passengers or, they can't be over what? This is the same distance. This to here is pretty much the same as to here. And it's a straight line on a map, right? There's dozens of these flight routes, and they all do the same thing where it's a straight line. But to make it worse, there's been a whole bunch of times where there's been an emergency. Someone's having a baby. Somebody is, having a heart attack, and the plane has to land. Here's one where they went all the way up to Seattle, which is like 1,000 miles off their track. One, they didn't have time to get there, but somehow they got there and they landed. But when you look at it, that Seattle is right on their route, right? Here's another emergency landing. This one landed, went to Moscow. Moscow is way out of the way, like 1,500 miles out of the way. They got there really fast. How did they travel 1,500 miles and get there? When you look at Moscow, Moscow's right on that line again, right? Another one. This one,
I've flown to Moscow a couple of times.
Yeah. This one, they went up to Calgary again. Why did they go to Calgary? Right? They went up to Calgary because on a flat Earth map, Calgary's right on that flight. Now, this only happens on southern flights. Now, if you had a southern flight that, let's take this Dallas to Beijing, and we took equal latitudes, southern latitudes, it doesn't come up to the north and go back down again. Right? Or actually, I'm sorry, that's not a one that's crossing, but the ones that cross the equator twice, the opposite in the north never happens. It never happens because the Earth is flat, right? The other thing is circumnavigation, right? People say, well, I've gone, to Japan, I kept going, and I came right back. Well, at the flat Earth, we have a magnetic north, and so here's my boat. My compass is pointing towards the center. I'm trying to push this thing west. Well, I have to keep turning to the right to maintain a heading of 90 degrees or 270. I'm going west. Sorry. So I have to turn. East and west are circles equidistant from the North Pole. So wherever you are, you have to keep turning left. Okay. To maintain that east setting right now. But now if I wanted to dead wreck in west, and I'm not going to look at my GPS or compass, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to head west. As soon as I start moving, I'm heading south. South is every direction away. Now, here's the thing. Circumnavigation, billions of people have circumnavigated the world east and west. 0 have done it south. Nobody has ever gone south and popped up on the other side of the world.
That's true, though. That's true.
Yeah.
You're right about that. You don't have to convince me of that one. That's definitely true.
Ken, you are a super smart guy. And the only reason you don't know that the Earth is a level plane and not a globe is because you never looked into.
Well, I've said we've lived on a plane like a million times in different videos. But something that you forgot to mention too, that's great support. Look up the Poincaré disk model of projective geometry. You know that I've got 3,000 videos on that ferrocell that device uses optically flat glass with like a nanoparticle thin layer of liquid between the two. You see the hologram on your credit card, right? Okay, great.
We have several of those, actually.
Oh, the ferrocells?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. So you know what they
Yes,
look like. Oh, okay.
we not only
Interesting.
bought some, but we made them as well. We have
And
a great big one. It's great.
oh yeah. I mean, look at the holographic effect of volume that you actually get from that. I mean, we do live on a plane. I mean, I've said that
Well, you've
endlessly.
said that. Yeah, you said not only that, but you've also said that um, that it is the dielectric inertial plane. Yeah, life is where it's possible there, right?
Right, it's the
Yeah,
lowest pressure
nowhere
mediation
else but
between the
there.
centrifugal divergent magnetic and centrifugal convergent dielectric, which are both the negative geometries of one another. That
Right.
volume, or I mean, not that a torus is a sphere. I mean, it isn't really so a sphere. I mean, it's completely unreal. It is holographic. It's the reason why you see incredible volume off of a nano thin layer of liquid between two super flat pieces of glass. Like, wow, look at the volume, so holographic. But you're looking at a mirage, of course. Optics are wonderful,
Right. So, you know,
wonderfully deceptive, anyway.
the other thing is, this is the Georgia Guidestones, and the center stone here, there's this little hole, and you look through it, Polaris is through there, right? So in the heliocentric model, we're moving 4.5 billion miles a year in one direction, farther in another direction, and somehow over 40 years, Polaris has never moved from that hole, which is absolutely impossible. Parallax, whatever. And then the Glober argument is, well, it's so far away that with that the 4.5 billion miles a year doesn't cause any parallax, which is ridiculous, because then you have the inverse square law of light issue and the size and all of that. But even on the globe model, they tell us in 4,000 years, we're going to have a new star, a new North Star. And 4,000 years ago, we had another one. Well, it would have moved a degree already in the 40 years it's been up, and that would knock it way out of this hole.
It would have moved also due to assumed precession of the Earth. So
right. And so the Earth is not moving. The sky is spinning around, and the North Star is almost at the exact center. It makes a tiny little circle, and all of the other stars. Now, when you get into the farther outer lands, all sorts of optics happen where, and I just say looking up at the sky is no way to prove the shape of the Earth. But when we people say
even stellarium, I was playing with that the other day. You can fast forward to whatever year you want. The North Star doesn't move.
Yeah.
And 4,500 AD, and the North Star doesn't move. It's like, how could your program be correct if it's supposed to be accounting for?
And
same in Starry Night.
The programmed response is, well, how come they can't see the North Star from the south? Well, there has been observatories as far as 30 degrees south that have seen it. But the reason is, if we were in a room with 10-foot high ceilings, and we say, okay, that light is the North Star, which is off to the side just a little bit, and then we expand that room to 10 miles wide. If I sent you a couple miles away to the outer south, right, I want to be able to see you, because the ceiling and the floor will merge together due to perspective. You'll look up and see completely different lights. I'll look up and see completely different lights. We'll call each other on our cell phone, and you can't see the north light above me, and I can't see the southern lights above you. That's exactly how it works. Ken, this topic is so incredible, and I'm going to just jump right to the end here, and I'm going to let Jaron. You probably have a couple of things you've been wanting to say, but Bob and I have been talking.
I'm good.
This is. People say, well, what difference does it make? I still have to go to work. Well, that's how they got us. In school, they tell us that we only use 10% of our brains. Well, that's the objective of school, is to shut down the 90%, the creativity, the connection to nature, the connection to source, or whatever you want to call it. They don't want us using that. They don't want us doing vortex mathematics and sacred geometry. They don't want us expanding our minds and using our imagination, because that could challenge their authority. So they put us into the 10% slave mentality. And they have us spinning out of control, where an asteroid is going to take us out. That's not going to happen. We're running out of water. There's infinite water. We're running out of food. That's ridiculous. We're overpopulated. Biggest joke in the world. Okay. And they want us living in fear, so we will succumb to them and we'll give our free will away. And
it makes the self-replicating system, and it weakens our immune system. We're constantly stressed out about bills,
yes,
and
right,
and all the nonsense. And
right.
It just makes us weaker and weaker and weaker.
So
you know what, Ken, I got to comment on something really quick here, Ken.
Yeah,
you are probably one of the smartest people I have ever come across, and one of the
some people must like to hear that, but I don't. I'm not saying don't say that, but I'm nobody.
I know, and I'm not. I know.
I think I know where Bob's going with this comment. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable or anything like that, but something that you've always said since the day I started watching you is that, I don't get into conspiracies. I don't, don't subscribe to that stuff or anything like that. And over the last 2 years, and we know what's happened over the last 2 years, you've been kind of changing your tune a little bit on that. And because it always occurred to me that you see what's going on in the world. You get
I
it.
know
And
a lot of
those
conspiracies are right, but I can't say that because then they say, "Oh, you are a conspiracy theorist." After I mean, tons and tons of
It's a
so-called
derogatory
conspiracies. Oh, of course it is. I know it is, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely
by
is.
anybody, by the rest of these fools, positions, I am a conspiracy theorist. I've always done that. That just means someone that's investigating the truth, and what everybody believes is lies and bullshit, and they got blinders on, and they're a bunch of brain dead blind sheep. So yeah. And
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
and I'm not, and you're not. And so yeah. So,
So-
I was
so
always
this-
a conspiracy theorist.
Go ahead,
So
Bob.
that's why we've always been a little bit puzzled about that, because it's like Ken is smart enough to see what's happening in the world. And, I'm sure you even see the deeper meaning of what's going on behind the we won't talk about that because we can't. But,
That tells you
the
everything you
world-
need to know right there that we can't talk about it.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
And don't forget, and don't let anybody. A lot of my friends were murdered. Two of my best friends were murdered on remdesivir.
My
Yeah.
mother.
Do not let your
Mother,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
our other
Yeah.
friend's mother,
Yeah.
Rob Skiba. Rob Skiba was one of the main voices in the flat Earth, and they.
Hey, easy. Careful.
Oh,
we're not
sorry.
gonna be able to put this.
Beep, beep.
You'll edit that out. You'll
Got-
edit it out.
Yeah, actually, we should. But just real quick, this isn't a fringe thing. This is these are the people. Let me just pull up the world map here. These are the people, just a small fraction of the people that know that the Earth is flat. These are the people. Okay, this is the fastest growing wave of truth. This is the United Kingdom. This is just a fraction of the people that now know what we're talking to you about, and it's growing faster and faster. And we're literally going to hit that parabolic tipping point coming very soon. So
We've noticed something that nobody who opens their eyes to this deception can ever go back.
yeah,
Because it becomes impossible. Like for me, it doesn't. I just can no longer jive with the spinning ball in the vacuum of space, and we're flying at crazy speeds, going around a sun that's 900,000 miles wide. I mean, because I just need evidence, and science loves to tell you, oh, extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence. Well, except for theirs, right? They
Yeah.
just teach it to kindergartners, and that's
You know.
forgot about the part of extraordinary evidence. Which
And,
I'll believe it if you give it to me.
yeah. So
Yeah, they'll tell you that magnets are talking to each other. Not my words, their words. They're telling you that magnets are talking to each other with virtual photons, and yet they're the ones that have their finger on the truth of the world, right?
Right. Sure.
Amen.
Unicorns, leprechauns, yeah, okay, whatever.
right. So I don't remember if I heard you mention Aristophanes last night or whatever. That's another big one is Aristophanes. He assumed that the sun rays were coming in parallel because of a distant sun. There's two problems there. No one's ever seen parallel rays. And the other thing is they had a distant sun. How is a distant sun orbiting a tiny speck Earth? Okay, that makes no sense. So they can't even get their lies right. But when you look at his experiment with the sticks and shadows, it works on a flat Earth. It works on a globe Earth, right? You can take the same shadow length right here and do some spherical geometry to figure out the size of the sphere. Well, on a flat Earth with a small local sun, no shadow, same geometry, you can figure out the sphericity of this flat plane. Okay.
Right.
No one's ever seen curvature. No one's ever measured for axial rotation. Actually, we have, but it actually proves the opposite. So there is no curvature. You can't have infinite space vacuum next to a pressurized atmosphere. Go ahead, Jaron.
I was just going to say, Ken knows about Michelson Morley. So
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. And
So-
you know about Michelson Gale also,
Gale.
I assume, yes? Okay, so Michelson Gale basically told us that they got a rotation of 15 degrees per hour of the ether rotating around the Earth. Now, I don't know how much you know about flat Earth, but I was in a kind of a feature movie about that, and it was a hit piece. It turned out to be a hit piece. It went viral on Netflix and everything. And we had an opportunity because we actually have a flat Earth scientific group called FE Core. And what we did is we purchased a fiber optic gyro. and which of course is a laser interferometer essentially. And because we wanted to find out, well, is the Earth turning or is it stable? Well, to our surprise, when we turned on that fiber optic gyro, we registered a 15 degree per hour drift. And it blew us away. We didn't know what to do. We thought about, different ways to block that to see if we could isolate what it was. Even thought about encasing it in bismuth, right? Per, one of the things you were talking about. But none of that stuff worked until we said, well, if it's the ether that's actually turning, then what we need to do is see if it has a different rate of turn at different elevations of the sun at the same latitudes, right? Because on a ball Earth, that shouldn't be possible. But on the flat Earth model, it absolutely would be. And lo and behold, we definitely got some variance between our first test site, which was Pikes Peak in Colorado at 14,125 feet. And then we went out east to the Eastern Plains on the same latitude line to about 4,500 feet. So we had a 10,000 foot variance, and we got a very substantial rate of change on that rotation. So that basically told us, well, that isn't then the rotation of the Earth that we're registering. So then we found out about Michelson-Gale, and Michelson-Gale said, okay, yeah, we detected the same thing. How do we determine what it is? So then along comes Airy's failure, right? And Airy's failure, I guess it had already been done by then, but it's a simple optical experiment, which we are going to reproduce in FE Core, that you take a telescope and you point it at the stars. Well, first of all, are you familiar with it? Airy's failure?
No.
Okay, so you take a telescope, you point it at the stars, and if and then you take that as a reference, and then you fill the front of the telescope up with water, which theoretically would slow the light coming in to the telescope, slow it down. And the idea is that if the light was already coming in at the correct angle, meaning that it's the sky that is turning above us, then they would not have to adjust the telescope. And if it did have to be adjusted, that meant that the Earth is spinning below it. Well, lo and behold, the telescope did not have to be adjusted, which meant that it was already coming in at the correct angle, which meant that it's the stars that are rotating above the Earth and not the other way around.
That's a fascinating experiment. That's really cool. I need to look that up.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely share some information on it with you. So, but the whole 9 yards is, of course, then Michelson-Morley came in and they ran their experiment, and they got something like a small percentage, like 10% of what they expected for an Earth rotation. But, they didn't know exactly what to make of that. But if the ether is spinning, and what they were doing is the Michelson-Morley experiment was made to measure linear motion, they were just kind of catching that edge of the, arc rotation. So
Ken, let me run I brought it up before. I just want to run you through a size thing. So if this is the sun, the Earth is a tiny BB next to it, a tiny little pebble, right? And so if the sun was just a mile over your head, it would fill the entire sky from horizon to horizon. So if I move the sun 93 million miles away, due to perspective, it becomes the size of a coin held at arm's length. That's a massive reduction. The entire sky to the size of a coin. So that's 8 light minutes away. If I doubled the distance, how much smaller would that sun get? A lot smaller. But let's be real safe here. If I go 24 times farther, okay, that's 3 light days. Okay, 3 light days away. It's scientifically provable that its angular size is far too small for your eye to see. Far too small by magnitudes. Okay, that's 3 light days away. All right. And then forgetting the inverse square law problem, you know what the inverse square law is, right?
Yes.
Do you? Okay. Yeah. So it's the light would never make it to us. It's like blow up like if I had a balloon and the balloon was the light and I blew the balloon up to a foot wide, the balloon's pretty thin. Now blow it up to 10 miles wide. Is there any balloon left? Okay. So the all of the light can't make it. So at 3 light days away, we can't see the sun. Then they tell us Polaris is 46 times bigger. Let's make it 48 times bigger. Okay. So to make it equal at 6 light days away 48 times 3 light days. Six light days away. Polaris would also be scientifically provable too small to see, ignoring the inverse square law problem, okay, which makes it far worse. That's at 6 light days away. They tell us it's 433 light years away, and we can see it. 433 light years. That is absolutely insanity.
Yeah.
And this is Arcturus through a P900 super zoom camera. Okay, this is here within the Earth system. They tell us it's 211 trillion miles away. Ken, do you know how long 1 trillion seconds is?
Oh Lord, no, I don't.
It's 31,000 years. So if I was traveling at 1 mile per second for 1 trillion seconds, that's going to take me 31,000 years, and I have to do that 210 more times to get to this star that I can see with my naked eye.
I was thinking with the P9000, you said?
P900.
P900.
I mean, and that's what I meant to say, P900 Nikon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so think about that. 211 trillion miles away. If I'm going 3,600 miles an hour, right? For 1 trillion seconds, that's 31,000 years. I'm only 1/211th of the way there. And I could see this with my naked eye, and that light is bright enough. How bright would that have to be? None of it. This is where people, even people as smart as you, our brains just short circuit because we were never taught to deal with numbers like that. We're like, well, somebody figured it out.
I was just thinking that same thing, of course.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? A little tidbit, real quick, David.
Go ahead.
Little tidbit for you, Ken, is one of the things that we looked into in the inverse square law of light, and also RF, which works the same for RF radiation, is if you take a measurement of the moon, a full moon here on Earth, it's somewhere between 0.1 lux and 1 lux. Okay, you can read a book by it, right, on a full moon.
Right.
So if you plug that equation into the inverse law inverse law, and backtrack it to its source, to the moon at 238,000 miles away, you want to take a guess what the light intensity would be when it gets there?
Yeah.
Or when it sources from there, I should say. What it would have to be in order to arrive here at 1 lux.
I don't know. What would
About
it be?
14.7 quadrillion lumens. That's absurd.
You would need
Right?
sunglasses to see that.
that you vaporize. And the other thing that they tell us,
Double pair
Ken,
of
is like
sunglasses.
spacecraft like Voyager 1, who, they were talking about how they just fired it up, a few months back. And it's like, 3 billion miles away now? And they said, so Voyager 1 is basically using a transmitter power that has about 25 watts of power, and then it's running through its little parabolic dish, which, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 dB gain. So it doesn't have a really high ERP coming out of it. So NASA says that when that signal reaches Earth, it comes in at 1/10 trillionth of a billionth of a watt. So that's 1/10 trillionth of a picowatt. Now, radio receivers, their sensitivity is measured in microwatts. They don't even go into picowatts.
No, I know they don't.
And
So they're lying to us.
and they tell us that our atmosphere or the radiation belts stop all these dangerous X-rays from cooking us, but they can't stop a radio wave from the distant Voyager.
The band passes 2 meters for the hams, and the band passes 2.4 gigahertz. Really? And how does it do that?
And I'm not sure if you remember the Red Bull space jump, but they lost communication. They were losing communication with him at 120,000 feet. Right? They were directly underneath him, and they could almost not communicate with the guy on a balloon 127,000
They were
feet above him.
probably transmitting 5 watts or more doing that, though.
Probably more, right? Right. And so all of this, all of
absurd.
space, all of the, and people go, well, how come Russia wouldn't tell on us? Well, we come from the camp that all of these countries, the division of countries is an illusion. They're all in it together, right? All of the space agencies, they're all in it together. There might be some rogue stuff going on. Like if you look at the friggin' Chinese space station, it is the dumbest thing ever. You probably didn't even know there's a Chinese space station now.
But
Which
it's funny
that's because there's no pictures of it.
Yeah.
I talked to a person in Russia about what they were taught about the space race, and of course, it's Russia tells their story, right? So they tell it as the stupid Americans went and spent all this money on the moon, but they were first in space. They were first animal in space, first woman in space, first orbit, first satellite. So it's like funny that people act like, oh, they would tell on each other, but really they tell two different stories that both fit their propaganda needs, right? That's
No,
how,
I lived in Russia for years. I know the propaganda that they tell the Russians, and they all believe. Well, the Russians don't actually believe it either. So
I don't think
They
they
use
do.
it here.
Not
They
like
use
the
it here,
Americans.
too.
The Americans believe it.
oh, I know.
It's very what do you call it? Patriotic, and it really does. I mean, there's a reason why they can't tell people we didn't go to the moon. It's because then everything gets exposed. Then long conspiracies can exist. Then you can lie to the public. Then the government can lie to the public, and the whole thing falls apart.
There's a study out that says, a conspiracy can only last so long because we tested and all these conspiracies are exposed under this amount of time. What about all of the conspiracies that they've never exposed that have lasted forever? Right? It's
How
a
could you
stupid.
do a scientific test on?
How could you do it?
It makes no sense.
Right.
They're like, oh, this is how long it would take secrets to come out. It's like, well, how did you calculate the ones that haven't come out yet?
Yeah.
You wouldn't know that they didn't come out.
I'm on the same page there. I know what a fraud NASA is, and I've been to the Cosmodrome, Russia's version of NASA. I mean, it's an even bigger lark. You're just like, oh Lord, this is just.
And it's not like they're hiding something in space. They're hiding aliens. They're hiding other civilizations. That's all nonsense, right? We believe that there's more land here beyond Antarctica, right? We don't know how far it goes. We don't know what's out there because we're not allowed to go. But nobody has been to space because space doesn't exist. Nobody is on those rockets. I have videos that show those rockets. The space shuttle was a balloon. That orange tank was helium. Okay. And when you start seeing this stuff, it really blows you away. Let me go ahead.
Well, yeah,
Somebody
not only
else.
that, the rocket engines are, they're over 200 decibels. I mean, that type of audio level will set things on fire, literally.
Yeah.
And you can't even hear those engines in the astronaut compartment.
This weighs 4 million pounds and it's blowing around in the wind like a bouncy house. Do you know why? NASA controls all the helium in the world. They're in charge. They use the most helium out of anybody, and they control all of the helium. This is a balloon. Okay, this is a balloon. This is the balloon, and it's got and you watch when this lights up. Right, you've seen what a tornado can do to telephone poles and trees and fences, ties them in knots. That's like 300-mile-an-hour cold wind. Right, this is going to shoot out superheated fire wind at thousands and thousands of degrees at thousands and thousands of miles per hour, and the fence doesn't shake. Nothing happens. Okay, and all of those people that you just saw, they're so far away that they can't even see this shuttle, but they edit it to make it look like it's right there. And now watch, this thing's going to bounce. It's going to go up. And then it's going to come back down. How do you lift 4 million pounds and now it comes back down again? Right? And now look, nothing happens. The amount of thrust should just pulverize everything. This is a balloon. There's nobody on it ever. There's nobody on it. And people say, what about the people that were on the space shuttle, that blew up? They're all alive. They all work for universities. They all had twin brothers and sisters.
Allegedly.
Yeah. That
Yes.
didn't show up at their funerals. Okay. I don't have the image of it. I had it somewhere. All right. So
Yeah, but basically, we have caught on so much footage of NASA. They're using CGI in the space station to fake, non-gravity. They are using balloons in these launches. We've even caught them where, as they were photographing one of those large tanks going down, there was a cloaked aircraft that was next to it. And David has that footage. Because it has to be retrieved. They have to go out and retrieve them. We have interviews from pilots that talk about how they have worldwide priority to go out and capture these balloons, because that's essentially what satellites are. They're not leaving and going into space. There are tens of thousands of satellites up there at any one moment in time. and they're all tethering on balloons. And NASA, of course, is the #1 user of helium in the entire world. Why do they need all that helium? And, it just, all of these things. And Ken, the way we approach this, at least I do anyway, is we look at things based on what's called a preponderance of evidence. Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with the term.
Oh, yes.
It's not like, well, this may not be an absolute killer. This may not be an absolute killer. But when you look at all of these things combined and the huge amount of evidence that there is for it, it's pretty hard to ignore.
Who's the guy that ran the Apollo program? He's the guy that always put on the white jacket. What was his name?
Werner von Braun.
No, the guy that was the director in the room there.
Gene
Jack
Kranz.
Parsons?
There
Or
you go,
Kranz?
Gene Kranz. There was a series on Discovery, it was like a decade ago, and they're interviewing and they're talking about the Apollo stuff. And his exact words were, I might get one word wrong. He's talking about all the guys behind all the controls, monitoring everything about the Apollo mission. His words were, none of these guys down here, meaning all the control experts, would have any idea between a real mission and a simulation.
We've done so many simulations that we can't tell the difference when we do the real one.
Right. They would have no idea. There's no way for them to tell.
Yeah. I don't know if he actually meant that as a cryptic release of info, or if he was just that stupid. Stupid.
Maybe.
So, go ahead, Jim.
So I mean, no, it's good, and I think that's good. I'm happy that you're at least open to hear it, and then maybe as you see things going forward, maybe they start to register a little bit, because we just
remember when there was the explosion on the command module of Apollo 13, the supposed explosion of the.
That was fake too, because they actually were going to land on the dark side accidentally.
Well, the supposed other Apollo missions, when they photographed the exact same thing, it was the exact same thing. So the notion of an explosion was complete.
And how did they get out through the Van Allen radiation belts also?
Oh yeah, well, they didn't answer that one.
Yeah, and when that came up, they said, well, what we did is we replotted and went up and went around it, right? But none of the mission logs actually reflect that. So I mean, the moon landings were a farce completely. And this, Ken, is why. And honestly, I got to tell you something. I'm really pleasantly surprised that you are as open to this as you are, and you seem.
I would make a video about the Apollo missions, but because people are so small-minded and closed-minded, they would jump all over my junk, like a caveman or something.
I know, and that's exactly what I said. Yesterday,
that came out wrong. I meant to say they beat me in the head, basically.
Yeah, they do. And we're very sensitive to that. Because, Ken, yesterday, we do our shows on Sundays. It's called Globebusters, okay? And I'm the host of Globebusters, and Jaron's on it, and several other people. But, we knew this interview was coming up with you, and I was telling everybody that it's like, I really want to respect Ken's feelings on this. I believe he's very smart, that he will be able to see this. But I also know that once you get tied in with flat Earth and that stigma, people come after you. They do. Yeah. They will try and ruin your life. It's horrible what goes on. Not to mention all the criticism.
Oh, people do that to me already anyway.
I know they do. Oh God, do I know?
But it's not as bad as it was a bunch of years ago. Now, like I go around and I go on people's shows and I introduce flat Earth to them. And, it used to be a couple of years ago, I'd mention flat Earth. Oh, you're an idiot. Now you mention flat Earth. I go, I've heard something about that. Yeah, come on our show. We'd like to talk to you about it. And people are open-minded. Look at this. This is an empty tank. I believe it weighs 40 tons and it's falling back to Earth. And it's going to burn up before it gets to these clouds, which are right there. Now, this is being filmed by the people that are on the shuttle that are on their way up at 17,000 miles an hour. Okay.
The distance
amazing depth of field, isn't it?
Yeah, and this thing should be falling, okay, falling at so fast that it's going to burn up. Right, those clouds are right there. Here's something to look at. Maybe we're looking at this from underneath and looking up at the clouds. Okay, we don't even know, but this thing is floating. This is a balloon, and I believe this is the one where you'll see the cloaked helicopter or something that's going to try to retrieve this thing. It might not be on this one.
Yeah, it's on the side. You can actually see, and the military has this technology.
Yeah.
We did a show on that, basically showing this cloaking technology that they have, and it's very real. And we caught hints of it in the proximity of this thing, and obviously they were getting ready to capture it and reclaim it because it's just a balloon.
Yeah, and I enhanced it, and you could see fins and wings, and
by the way, this is
there
still
it is.
this
I
is
saw it.
dropping. Yeah, this is still dropping after they already went around the Earth once in an orbit, right?
yeah, and
Which
they
is
caught
every
up with
90
it
minutes.
again. Yeah,
That's completely impossible.
It
and,
is.
and people don't get it. So when I was saying this is shot from underneath, here's I show this on some shows. I'm like, how come we don't see any land? And then the Glober will go, well, because you're over the center of the ocean. I'm like, well, you can't see curvature. They're like, yeah, you can see the curvature. Look, and I say, well, how do you know this is from the space shuttle and it's not from my front yard? Okay, just being filmed upside down,
Yeah.
right? And
It's pretty good. I like that one.
my
I like
budget-
that one.
my budget is not $63 million a day. I only get $6 million a day.
Should tell people to download Apollo mission photos of the old ones and then invert the images. That'll shock the hell out of them.
Look, we have so much stuff on the Apollo landing. Like, basically, we use the Apollo landing as our litmus test. Like, do you believe in the Apollo landing? They're like, yep. Like, well, we're pretty much done here.
You're hopeless.
Yeah, we're pretty much done here. Yeah.
People
So
are indoctrinated to believe all sorts of stupid stuff. Everybody thinks photon particles exist, and that's just ridiculous.
yeah,
There's no such thing. Electron particles.
Yeah, it's true. And so, Ken, I don't know if you knew this or not, but we get so much crap from people, and they talk about how flat earthers are not scientific, that none of us have any education or degrees or anything like that. And me personally, I'm an engineer, have been my entire life. I sit on the board of directors on a small 501c3 nonprofit called FE Core. Okay, and we formed FE Core to basically study the true nature of our world. And right now we have something like 600 members. And out of those members, I mean, lots of them are engineers, scientists, physicists who will never come out because they need their anonymity preserved, because otherwise they're out of a job or they're ruined or whatever.
Oh, you don't have to convince me of that one. I understand that.
Yeah. And so, but nevertheless, and we have run so many tests. We've run laser tests. We've done microwave tests. We're going to redo Aries failure, on and on and on and on. And, I'm talking about, people that are very professional in their field. So it's not like, and granted, Flat Earth definitely has a bunch of crackpots in the community. There's no doubt about that. But
there's
also
crackpots in
so
every
many of us-
community.
There are,
Right.
but there's so many of us that are dead serious about that, because we look at the world, we see there's something very wrong with the world. Technically, on so many levels, what they're telling us about our cosmology, our space program, our history even is a lie. And so we want to know why. And so we are willing to be ridiculed. It doesn't always feel good, but we want to know why. And it's that reason that we do this.
Bottomless levels of systems of control. We have everything other than a tracking device shoved up our sphincter already. Of course, we have that now. It's called a cell phone, but
Yeah,
Right.
it's true. It's true.
Ken, not to take up all of your time. Do you have any questions for us? Any like thing that's like, well, how could the Earth be flat if?
I don't have any questions like that. I'm not trying to hold anything back at all. I just want to have an open-minded, intelligent discussion, which of course we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been fabulous, Ken. God, I can't believe this. I was so nervous at the beginning. I'm really starting to calm down a little. But for somebody that does,
Nobody should
I
be
mean,
nervous to talk to me. I'm not bad.
I
mean,
know.
I have a
well,
No,
there's
because no,
kind of a little bit of-
sometimes the most educated people, which I'm going to say you're not, are the worst, right? You're just smart. Okay.
Oh,
Education is indoctrination,
correct.
right? You actually use your brain to figure things out. So you already had those muscles to hear what we were saying. Other people, do you ever watch movies? You watch The Matrix?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, so Keanu Reeves, he got unplugged from the Matrix. He's on the table. He's got 100 IVs in him. And he goes to Morpheus. He goes, why do my eyes hurt? And Morpheus goes, because you never used them before.
Yeah.
And so I'm on a show that's having me on because they think they're just going to make fun of a flat earther. I blow them away with information and they all go, oh, my brain hurts. And I'm like, because you've never used it before. Ken, you've used your brain. This is a layup for you. Now that we've pointed at all these doors, you can go look. The thing is, if you Google flat earth, you get all propaganda, all horrible propaganda.
I know about that. I've been saying for decades. Nothing.
Yeah.
You should remember this too. Nothing true is popular, and nothing popular is true.
Yes.
My other motto is to insult the fool is the praise of wisdom, and I forget what my other one is. I've got a few mottos that I live by: simplicity,
Like 'em.
divinity.
Well, that
Belief
was so,
is the
that was
enemy
what
of-
was so
Go ahead, Bob.
that was what was so enigmatic about you, is like you clearly seemed to understand what was going on. The things that you said made total sense, and yet you were giving the impression, or you do give the impression to people that you think that all this is nonsense. And I get that. A lot of that is
I
self-preservation.
think the whole world is nonsense.
Oh God. Well, so do we. So do we. And honestly, we want to do something about it, you know, because we don't believe that somebody's going to come along on a white horse and just save us. If we don't stand up and do it ourselves, then we're in trouble. And this world is heading in a bad place. And I know you know that.
Oh yeah.
So, and it's really sad. It really is. So,
That's why I spent
we
all my
are-
money on land recently. I just got a farm, and it's got a cave and a spring on it.
very smart. Very smart.
If I have to retreat to it, I guess I will. And the whole world is trying to reset itself, or at least flesh itself into oblivion.
Yes. So I used to do a conspiracy podcast, and I'd wake people up to these big events that have happened that are fake, and people just go right back to sleep. But when I wake them up to, hey, you're not spinning out of control, lost in an infinite universe. You're at the center of creation in a very safe place with abundance. People wake up to that and actually change their lives. It changes who they are. It lets them take their power back, right? Because subconsciously, if you're spinning out of control, lost in space, you're a scared little child. But once you plant your feet on this dielectric plane and plug in, no pun intended, or pun intended, you take your power back. And then you realize that nobody has authority over you other than in your imagination.
Well,
That's the thing.
all of this is true. I'm on your side, and what you folks are saying, being logical, straightforward, and sensible. The crazy people.
Incoherent electrostatic acceleration.
Oh, sure.
Bob,
Sorry, guys.
Downward.
It's all right.
My bad. Okay.
It's all right. The crazy people are Greta Thunberg, Biden. You know, everybody else is trying to make us live in fear, and just, I mean, I hate working 7 days a week. It's just perpetual. The harder I work, the less I make. Or just, I don't know how people are doing it out there. People with wife and kids and a mortgage and car payment. It just, everybody's just living in a little bubble of their own flatulence, and they just.
That's where they want us. They want us
exactly.
working paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Watch some sports on the weekends,
and debt up to our eyeballs,
and totally, being owned.
As that saying, treat them like mushrooms, feed them shit, and keep them in the dark. Heard that one before?
That's a good one.
Should remember that one.
So,
Sorry,
what time is
absolutely true.
your live stream tomorrow? That's going to be titled "Earth is Flat, Prove Me Wrong."
The next live stream is Wednesday.
Is it going to be called "Earth is Flat, Prove Me Wrong"?
No, actually, I always let people decide what the discussion would be. I mean, it varies. If I lead it, then they get upset. If I talk about stuff they want to, then everybody seems to be happier. So,
all right, guys. Anything else before we wrap up? Bob. Bob will talk to you all night if I let him. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, I would too. Honestly, well,
soon.
Yeah, actually, I would like to ask this, Ken, and I mean this in all sincerity. I don't expect to convert you, but I do very much respect your opinion on things, and I'm trying to model this. I'm trying to see how all of this is possible, and so far, the work that you brought forward really fits into this really well. And occasionally it would be nice to be able to reach out to you, and I'll buy you all the pizzas you want, man.
I'm too fat. I can't eat them. I appreciate that. But.
And I was just wondering if you would be, open to that, and even if you wanted some sort of a consulting type fee, we could probably arrange something like that.
No, we can talk. Just send me an email. I'll give you my phone number. You can call me.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I just get frustrated in daily life because I'm not digging ditches or whatever, but I just get worn down from working 7 days a week and just the mountain of emails and the comments. And I really do work 4 jobs, and it seems like the harder I work, the less I make. And I'm not trying to get rich or get ahead. I got like $300 in my name, but I would like to, someday take like 2 weeks off and just like rest and, take a deep breath. And I don't know. That's just where I get frustrated in life,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that would be outstanding. It really would be. And like I said,
I've turned into the grumpy old man that I used to make fun of. I think
Ken, I'm gonna send you an email when we're done with just a link, a playlist of some videos that when you have some time you want to kick back. They're well produced, they're very entertaining, and they're very interesting. That'll just expand upon the things that we said and much more. So just save it for like a rainy day, or you want to just unwind. Good, excellent documentaries on this topic.
And I love your shirt, man. I could read it. I know what it says. It's awesome. Nice. I need a shirt like that.
I should show Ken what I have behind this green screen.
You want to see? Yeah, show him.
Let me see if I can do this. If I turn my camera down.
So Ken, I just dropped
cool.
Yeah, it's wild.
Oh, sweet.
And it's got the whole control panels over here.
Oh, sweet.
And I've got over here, I have the a headpiece. So you go underneath that, you put your head underneath it.
Yeah.
And it fills it.
Cool.
It's very, very cool.
I experiment over my giant monster magnet. It affects your cryptocombs in your eyes. It'll keep you awake for 2 days straight.
Oh, Jesus.
So Ken, I dropped you a link in the chat, the Zoom chat. That is a really good wrap up of Aries failure done by a guy named Professor Malcolm Bowden. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not. I can't see the link in the Zoom. You'd have to send it to me an email. I don't see it here.
I'll go hit the chat button.
You see the chat button?
Oh, my bad. Okay. I've like used Zoom twice in my life. So, okay. I got you.
So yeah, watch that. And, it's so amazing that they knew all of this stuff so many years ago in Aries failure and Michelson-Gale, Michelson-Morley. And every single experiment that was ever done proved that we're not in motion, non-rotating. F.E. Core and hundreds of other people all around the world, we have literally thousands of people that have done tests on Earth curvature with laser, microwave, and not one time have we ever measured curvature. So what are we supposed to assume? Flat isn't a geometric shape, it's a feature, but there is no sphericity that we can detect, and that sphericity is pretty strong. It starts out at 8 inches for the first mile, and then it squares after that. So if you have 10 miles at 8 inches per mile squared, then the curvature would be 66 feet, right?
I have to be completely complicit with you and be honest and logical. And I will state, and I'm not saying it to placate you at all. I say it meaningfully and importantly that I have seen absolutely no demonstrable evidence that, smacks you in the face like a fish of curvature either. And that is not being said by me to you.
I offer 3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof, and I still have my Bitcoins. Okay. 1 globe proof. There's none. There's things that work on both, like east-west circumnavigation. There's things that only work on a flat earth, like we can see too far, but there's nothing that just works on a globe that doesn't also work on a flat earth.
Correct.
There's nothing. So a preponderance of evidence, we're beyond a preponderance of evidence. There's so much evidence of a level plane. Now, yes, mountains, valleys, right? And as you said, Bob, level horizontal is not a shape, but it's a description of level and horizontal.
Yeah, obviously there's surface features, mountains, all of that stuff. But even surveyors measure slopes. There is no tool in existence that measures curvature. The curvature comes in is when they add a mathematical transform to the values they already have. In other words, it's artificially constructed. Nobody's ever measured it. Nobody's ever seen it. Anything where the Earth should be blocking either RF or light, it never happens.
Nearly all
it's just,
curvature is optical or perspective. So what people think
Right,
they're
but-
seeing, what people think they're seeing, they're not actually seeing. No different than, of course, the Faro cell and a hologram.
Right. Well, and not only that, it's like, one of the big examples that the mainstream gives is, when you're watching a boat and it goes out and it's sailing away from you and it goes bottom first over the horizon, right? It's like, well, that's nice, except now we have these Nikon P900s and P1000s.
Right
and
here.
we can zoom them right back in.
Right. So
And
we're zooming in, we're making the horizon bigger, and as we expand it, all of a sudden we can see, oh,
See it again.
there is a boat there. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I zoom out, it's just like the boat's going away, and you'll watch the boat disappear from the bottom up due to these little waves in the foreground are blocking the shrinking boat in the background. And so the hull is gone and the entire thing just disappears because it goes beyond it's called the Rayleigh criteria, the angular resolution limits of your eyes. So there's no boat there, but the boat is there. We zoom in and we could bring it back into view. Where's the boat?
Yeah,
and
we've
we've actually
those cameras.
Oh,
Yeah, they're great. We've actually sighted targets at 1,000 miles away using some pretty specialized infrared equipment. Because with infrared, you just cut out all the crap, all the haze, and it gives you an amazing resolution. We have an engineer on staff. His name is Jay Tolan, and he is a Defense Department engineer, believe it or not, RF, all this stuff. And he's recently got into this, and he has bought all this camera equipment, infrared, converted it, and it is
He's seen amazing things. Yeah.
What he's gotten. I mean, hundreds of miles to thousands of miles, away. And when you start dealing with that much curvature, for example, if you go 100 miles out, that's 6,666 feet of curvature, over a mile of curvature. And there's no evidence of it ever.
So let me show him a practical example. This is a spot in Aluja, France, and out here is Mount Canigou, 175 miles away. From this altitude and that distance, the top of Mount Canigou should be over half a mile below the curvature of the Earth. Okay, so the light that's bouncing off of Mount Canigou isn't strong enough to push all the way here. Like if I turned off all the lights in my room, you wouldn't see me because there's no light bouncing off me. However, twice a year, the sun's migrating in between the tropics. And at one point it lines up with the viewing spot and the viewer. And as the sun goes away, all the sun's light is powerful enough. And all of a sudden you can start seeing, this is Mount Canigou here. And the very top right here should be a half a mile below the curvature, the top right there. Okay. And there's a mountain. It's not a mirage. It's actually there. But without the sun backlighting it, you just can't see it. And only twice a year for a day or two, when the conditions are right, you can actually see it. So not a mirage, as you'll see. This will block the sun. Now the Globers will go, well, the mountain is below the Earth and the sun set 10 minutes ago, but it's refracting up and stopping at eye level magically.
Yeah, that's nonsensical, their explanation.
Yeah, it's that's all they have is nonsense. But they say it in a snarky voice and in a way condescending, and most people are like, oh, I don't want to be stupid. I have to believe them.
Yeah. And another interesting piece of evidence also is that, if Earth is supposedly rotating at 1,037.5 miles per hour at the equator, going around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour, the solar system going around the Milky Way at 500,000 miles an hour, and the Milky Way going around the Great Attractor at 1.3 million miles per hour, and on and on and on, we should be able to not only predict where we are going to pick up different accelerations through perihelion, aphelion, and what's the other one? The places of maximum acceleration, right? So what we've done is we've gotten these accelerometers, and a lot of these accelerometers in today's world are laser interferometry based, and they are super, super sensitive. Absolutely, they should be more sensitive easily than to be able to measure any of these motions. And yet they pick up absolutely zero motion whatsoever. We should be feeling acceleration forces all the time because of all the different vectors. It's like, yeah, people say, oh, you're going in a straight line. It's like, and you don't feel that. It's like, no, we're not going in a straight line. The Earth is constantly accelerating just because of the fact that it's going around in a circle. That's the centrifugal force, right?
Right.
You
right.
should be able to measure that. You can't. And this is again why we put FE Core together, to be able to bring this information to people. It's absolutely amazing. And it blows us away, Ken, because there are so many people in the world, so many engineers, physicists, PhDs, idiots, basically, that cannot look at this simple string of logic and reconcile it. It's unbelievable. It's like,
I gave up on talking
motions?
to those people ages ago. They're not smart at all. So
no, they're not. They're not. So this is, of course, is why we get a lot of ridicule, because that's all they have. If NASA were really ever to go into a debate with us, we'd kill them. We really would. But they'll never do that. And
they say they don't have enough time to talk about flat Earth, but meanwhile they'll do video after video after video, strawmanning us and gaslighting us. But they won't talk to us. And then they'll get some guy that says he's a flat earther who's not a flat earther, and they'll talk to him. And
remember when they were going to make a big movie and a book, or it's just a book, refuting the people that said Apollo never happened, and then they said, well, we don't want to give them validation by talking about their nonsense, so we're not going to do that project now. I forget the name of the project.
Yeah, no, it'd be all over for them if they ever gave us that time of day. And now what's funny is they're attacking us on a different level about, they're sending pilots after us saying, well, we'll fly you to Antarctica and, do all this stuff. And then they said, but we can't really take the route over Antarctica that you want. It's like, but if we're chartering it, why can't we do that, right? So the amount of propaganda alone that goes against the flat Earth is unbelievable. In fact, 3 or 4 years ago, when you Googled flat Earth, we got more hits than Donald Trump, right? And Google decided at that point in time that there was a problem, and so did Congress. And so they subpoenaed Google into testify before Congress and say, what are you going to do about these people that are doing this, right? And so Google says, well, we'll just demote their content and we will put disclaimers in saying the world isn't flat, right? And they do that. And now, so if you Google flat Earth or YouTube flat Earth, all you get is the contrary and nonsense viewpoints that we don't agree with at all. For example, they say, well, flat earthers believe that the Earth is accelerating upward at 9.8 meters per second squared, and that's what actually gravity is. And what's ridiculous about that is it was Albert Einstein that came up with that theory. And a lot of the physicists today actually say that that's a reality of what's giving us our gravity. And this is on the mainstream side. It's unbelievable, the stuff they say. Really is.
Can they tell us seasons happen because when we're tilted away from the sun, the sun rays spread out and aren't as intense, right? You're aware of that?
Yeah.
So did you know that during our northern winter, we're closer to the sun than in our summer, right? By 3.5 million miles. But they say that doesn't matter, right? But at sunrise in June here in Connecticut, I could feel the heat on my face immediately. I can get a tan. But in December 21st, when the sun's 3.5 million miles closer, at solar noon, when the sun's like 50 degrees in the sky, I could look at it and I can't feel the heat on my face. I can't get a tan. Okay. Much more direct angle. Right. And it's because the whole tilt thing is ridiculous. Let me just show you real quick how seasons work. So we have the Tropic of Cancer, which is this inner yellow line. And the outer yellow line is the Tropic of Capricorn. So I'm going to jump it to June, April, May, June. So in June, the sun's over the Tropic of Cancer. It's close to us in the inner north, right? It's hot in Miami because the sun goes right over Miami. It's directly over them, right? And so all of the inner north has a close local sun that's heating us up. Australia out here is having their winter. Santiago is having their winter because they're far away from the sun. But 6 months later, the sun moves out to the Tropic of Capricorn, one more, and the outer south has their summer. We have our winter. Imagine you and I were here in the middle of winter, frozen field, and we're, I don't know, 20 feet apart. And Jaron comes over with a big stick that's holding a super heat lamp and is holding it 15 feet over your head, directly over you. You're going to sit there. The snow around you is going to melt. You're going to be like, it feels good. And I'm going to say, point to that light. And you're going to say, it's right up there. Well, I'm going to look at that light. I'm going to say, no, it's over there, like 45 degrees from me. And I don't feel any heat. Then Jaron will walk over to me and he won't lower it at all. And you'll watch it get lower and lower and lower. I'll watch it get higher and higher and higher until I get warmer and warmer. And it's higher in the sky, just like our sun is in the summer. It's higher in the sky. And when it's farther away, it's colder. It's
Correct.
that simple.
Simplicity is divinity.
Right. And
Yeah.
we also get,
So
yeah, we get,
from decades ago.
yeah, we
Darren,
get a lot of,
Oh, you guys
I
are
was just,
great.
yeah, we get a lot of crap because, you know, flat earth ballers are saying, well, you have no model, you have no map. And it's like, well, we also haven't had thousands of years to exactly do this. And we get no support whatsoever. It's all grassroots, every bit of it. And what we have done in the past 5 to 7 years has been astounding. The amount of evidence that we could bring to the table that actually supports the flat stationary Earth versus the heliocentric model, there's no comparison. There really isn't.
And when they say we don't have a map, we don't have a perfect map, but I can watch the sun and I could call my friend in Johannesburg, and when the sun's right there, and it'll be like, it's noon, the sun's right there. And I can call my friend, in Australia when the sun's over there, and they're like, yeah, the sun's right there. So wherever the sun is, it's noon. There's something right about this map. I'm not gonna say it's perfect, but there's something extremely right about this map.
Yeah, they use AE maps in all kinds of industries. The hams use AE maps, all that stuff, because it works in so many ways. But where it fails is in sun angles. But what most people don't understand is that when you start looking at objects in the sky, like the sun and the moon, you're looking at an apparent position of the sun and an apparent position of the moon. And
Right.
if you do a standard Pythagorean triangulation on it, the sun and the moon are between 3,500 and 4,000 miles up. That's what the triangulation reveals, right? But if you add a third, fourth, or fifth point to that triangulation, then it starts going really wonky because none of these things come together because of the refraction that's going on the Earth above us, right? So, we understand full well that the sun is not where it appears to be, right? It's an apparent position.
Right. So here's a little experiment I did. So I have a sheet hanging there. I have a flashlight 10 feet on the other side, which happens to look really a lot like the sun. I was kind of like, wow, that looks just like the sun. So my girlfriend's standing to the left of me and I say, hey, where do you see the sun? And she points there.
Mhm.
Well, I see the sun over here. So I move over to her. She sees the sun right there. That's her point of view. At the same time, I see the sun right there. So everybody sees it in our dome of vision, because our dome of vision is how far you can see in all directions, and that creates a dome. I could see probably farther higher than I could see across. So I have this personal atmospheric dome over me, and everything I see is within that dome of vision.
Right. It's
We
a
sent a
perspective issue.
We sent a balloon up in Arizona at night with high def cameras looking up. And before it took off, it saw a sky full of stars. And when it got to like 60,000 feet, all the stars were gone.
Yeah, and that's another thing the astronauts say too, is half the astronauts will say, oh, the sky is so full of stars in space, it's unbelievable.
And there were no pictures of that.
And the rest of them say, oh, it's a deep black, a deep dark black, and you can't see anything. It's like, well, have you been there or not? Right? Everything they say is completely ambiguous about that. And,
Leroy Chow said he can't see the stars, whether he's on the day side of Earth or night side of Earth, which makes no sense. Why would you not be able to see? Even on the day side of Earth, you don't have the atmosphere. You should be able to see all the stars. The sun shouldn't block out the stars. Doesn't make sense.
Right. And then eclipses are another huge issue also. Now, there are some interesting ideas out there about what's going on about an eclipse in a flat Earth. Like there are black bodies, like dark bodies, essentially that are causing an eclipse. But what's interesting is that we have things that are called like a Selenelian eclipse, right? And the Selenelian eclipse occurs when both the sun and the moon are way above the horizon of the Earth, right? Well, how can the Earth possibly be causing an eclipse if both of those things are above it? Well, mainstream says, well, it's dropping at about 5 degrees into the atmosphere, which is absurd, because it would seem to me that would happen a lot, if not all the time. So eclipses really don't make sense as far as the sizes, the shadows that they cast, the umbras and the penumbra. When we had the last eclipse in 2017, we went out with about 1 million cameras, solar telescopes, all kinds of equipment. We photographed it, and you cannot see the moon actually approach the sun and cross it. There's no evidence of it. And when we were in the totality of the complete umbra, there should have been a huge amount of earth shine at where we were, that it would have been bouncing back kind of a blue hue from the Earth. And yet it's perfectly pitch black. Anomalies. And, granted, we don't have all the answers, but we can certainly point out the flaws in the mainstream ones.
Oh, I do. I have all the answers.
Oh, that's right. You forgot Darren was here.
Leave me out of the conversation. No. We don't have all the answers, but we are open-minded enough to look, and you just can't find that anymore. I can't find anybody on YouTube to give me their honest opinion anymore. It's all contrived, or they're saying what they're told to say. So
I get a lot of stress from YouTube. It's hard dealing with all the people on there. I'm used to it after all these years, but
well, it's because you think for yourself, Ken. You use your brain.
But they stopped me. How long ago was I at 150, Bob? 3 years. So I've been at 150,000 subscribers for 3 years, and I do shows 3 times a week. The reason I can't go up is because I've been completely shadow banned, where the only people that see my content are people who are already subscribed. Nobody who's not subscribed ever sees my content. So it's pretty telling when they do that, when I'm just talking about my opinions of the shape of the Earth, and they can't let that get out.
Yeah, 7,000 plus videos. I mean, I'm shadow banned on some level too. So I
think once you get past that 100,000, they probably have a specific person that looks into you.
Oh, absolutely.
You're over the mark, Ken, and they only do that to people that are over the mark. If this was truly bullshit, and they would react to it just like they would anything else. They would ignore it. They wouldn't even give it the time of day,
or they'd shut it down with proof. But there is no proof.
There is no proof. I mean, or they would come and debate us.
I go on shows, and then the trolls, I have a dedicated trolls that follow me everywhere, and they'll go and they'll comment on everyone's comments, but you go look at their channels, no subs, no content, and no glow proof. They just insult. They call me a scammer. They whatever, but Jew. they never Jew. That's all. They get some things right. And they never offer a glow proof. Not one.
We're just stupid. We're dumb. And that's what's amazing to me, is that these people that are believers in science have no beliefs of their own. It took me forever.
They do drive-by hit jobs. Whatever I'm discussing, they do a drive-by. Bang, bang, bang. Keep on driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hey, Ken, I have a quick question, but it's kind of off the subject. You said that you used to be a ham radio operator. I'm assuming you let it expire?
Oh, yeah. Kilo Delta 4, Papa Whiskey Juliet. I did, yeah.
Oh,
I got
okay,
a couple
cool.
2-meter 440s back here. I don't use my 2-meter 440, but in case of emergency, they pick up, use them as regular walkie-talkie frequencies, no weather radio stuff. And they're like $50. So it's just get on
cool.
ham radio, and people only talk about ham radio. Hey, this is my ham radio. This is what I do. This is what antenna I got. So you spend all the time, all the energy. Dipole antenna in the back, Yagi antennas. Well, hey, what ham radio are you using? Well, this ham radio I'm using. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I was huge into ham radio. In fact, this year, I am at half century, 50 years as a ham.
Wow.
My call sign is KN0DEL. Now,
Can you change your call sign?
I can, because I have an amateur extra.
Can you change it to
they're called vanity call signs?
ERTHFLAT?
Yeah, right. No, my call sign is KN0DEL because my last name is Nodell, and it's spelled KNODEL. So it used to be years ago that novices would have WN or KN, right? And I always thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could get KN0DEL? And then they opened up the vanity calls, and I applied for it and got it. So now I have KN0DEL and, with my extra class. But yeah, 50 years this year.
Wow.
Very cool.
Extra class, man. You've gone the whole way.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
just
yeah. And I
just a
had the
tech
extra
plus.
at 17. So it's been a long,
All right,
long
guys,
time.
we're going to wrap this up because I have another interview coming up in 45 and I got to rest my voice for a minute.
You want me to post this on my channel, Dave?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and I'll just edit out me saying something dumb, whatever I said.
Ken, thanks for coming on. And
Nice meeting you, man.
I had high confidence that you would be able to see this. And
Maybe
I win.
there'll be some more freedom out there that the Muskmeister has bought the most evil website on the internet. There might be a hair more freedom. I mean, since it's already the most evil, I don't think it can get more evil. So we'll see if it, well.
But tell people, Ken, we got a lot of people that listen to my channel that would like to support you if they can. So where can they do that?
Oh, just in the videos, and the description of every video is the same on mine. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Just link his channel.
We appreciate you.
That's I hope you all have a wonderful week.
You too.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
Absolutely. Thank
Sure,
you so much, Ken.
See
You're
you.
awesome.
Bless
Bye-bye.
you, sir. Shit. Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye.